I am so excited to be back here again. This has been like the highlight, coming back to this sanctuary, coming back here. I am grateful because I am blessed. So, as many of us know, Unity was founded on the spiritual principle of healing. And that's what we're going to be talking about today is healing. And of course, the accompanying principle of prayer. They go like this, hand in hand. Unity co-founder Myrtle Fillmore, as many of you know, was 40 years young when the doctors told her she had 6 months to live. Myrtle was sick as a child from her childhood with tuberculosis. And at that point in time, tuberculosis killed 1 in 7 people. It was a sentence, right? A death sentence. But she and her hubby, Charles, attended a talk by a gentleman named E.B. Weeks. And I know this is historical information for a lot of you, but for those of you who don't know or need a reminder, that's what I'm here to do. So she heard this statement, many of you know this, I am a child of God and therefore I do not inherit illness, right? I use that many, many times. I am a child of God and therefore I don't inherit poverty. I'm a child of God and therefore I don't inherit conflict. We are children of God and we can claim that in any area that we choose. So the old belief that she was an invalid, was born as an invalid, all that was washed away as she sat there and listened to Mr. Weeks. It changed her life into the new belief that she was a beloved child of God and God's will for her could only be perfection. She wanted to be made well. Myrtle continued to live joyfully and healthfully until she passed on at the age of 86. But what I want you guys to hear, so listen to me. Her attendance at that one talk was not a one and done. She went home and she prayed 5 hours a day for 2 years. We have a hard time praying for 5 minutes a day. Is that right? Yeah. So she prayed for hours each day before she reached the level of health she sought, and that was being free from tuberculosis. So Myrtle discovered several vital aspects in her healing, and she passes them on to us in many of her books, but she wrote a particular book called Healing Letters. Do any of you have that book? Healing Letters. You might want to go through it again. Now, none of you here are aware of the fact that last March of 2024, I was very, very sick. I was in the hospital for a period of time, and the details of my illness are not important to this talk. But what is important is that God moved through this entire situation. And although I was very, very sick, the entire event that was brought to light was a particular life illness that I had been suffering with. So what I'm saying is I'm very grateful for that illness, very, very grateful, and I feel blessed that the whole thing happened because I wanted to be made well. While I was in the hospital, I prayed for peace, peace for myself, peace for those taking care of me, the physicians, the surgeons, everybody who came in to poke me for more blood. Definitely praying for them, right? I prayed for wisdom and clarity for the doctors and all the medical staff. I prayed for healing and answers, all of which I ended up receiving. I had several prayers that ran in a loop in my head. The prayer of protection, the 23rd Psalm, and the Lord's Prayer. They just ran in my head. Every time they rolled me to another procedure, I was just rolling these prayers in my head. And I was never afraid. I wasn't fearful. I felt the arms around me, the wings of grace surrounded me. And so I prayed these over and over and over again, and I felt the words as if they were the cells of my being. I actually fell into those words, like falling into a deep, thick comforter. And that's how I was comforted. Those words comforted me. So therefore, I knew the presence was always right with me, around me, in those cells, in the marrow of my bones, was the presence of God. And you know, that's always there. The presence is right here, in you, in me, in this very instant. We are never separated from the presence of God. We just, as I've said to you guys before, we have built-in forgetters. We forget that. So, because the presence of God watches over us and is always in us, we know that wherever we are, God is, right? We're never alone. And I can tell you without a shadow of doubt that my faith expanded exponentially. Spiritually, I was completely surrendered. I knew that Mother, Father, God had me, had my back, as we say, so to speak. I was protected, which, by the way, we all are all the time. This was just a time when I literally knew it, because I wanted to be made well. My passion for God has become so strong and anchored in so deep that I am here. Indeed, we all are here, or you wouldn't have come this morning, to know the presence of God. And we got to figure out what that means, to know the presence of God. I know that I literally wanted to feel that presence beating my heart. I wanted to be so close to God that I felt its breath on my cheek and felt its arms wrapping around me protectively. I wanted then and now to have this presence so close that I could hear its thoughts in my head rather than my own thoughts. Wouldn't you guys love to hear the thoughts of God in your head rather than your own? Raise your hand. Of course, because our thoughts are generally useless and trash, right? So I could feel the presence and I breathing together. I could feel that. Because there's another thing, when you're sitting in a hospital bed, there's really not much to do. So you may as well usher yourselves into the presence and just be there, be present with the presence. So every breath that we take, we are in the divine mystery that we call God. So I believe that this is how Myrtle could pray for hours and hours for 2 years, because she was totally in it. She was in that divine mystery. She swam in that ocean of God that we talk about, but we have no idea what we're saying. God was nearer to her and to me and to you than our own hands and feet. So of course she was made well. Of course. And you might think that 2 years is a long time, because it is. But she was made well in that 2-year period. Her faith made her well. And the same is correct and right and possible, of course, for you and for me. So I want to have us look at a couple of accounts in the Bible where Jesus healed people. The first story that we'll discuss is found in all 3 of the canonical Gospels, but we're going to look at Mark. If you want to write this down, you can. It's Mark 5, verses 25 and on. And you know this story, but I'm going to read it to you straight out of the Word of God, which we're going to bless. Whoops. And a large crowd followed him and pressed in on him. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. She had endured much under physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in a crowd and touched his clothes. For she said, "If I but touch his clothes, I will be made well." Immediately her hemorrhage stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And immediately aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And his disciples, who were not the smartest bunch, said to him, "You can see the crowd pressing all around you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" He looked all around to see who had done it, but the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." So, ladies, you know what this story is referring to, 12 years of hemorrhaging. We know what that's about. Pretty unpleasant, right? Now, I want to ask you just a kind of slightly but not really off-topic question. Are any of you in here watching The Chosen? Yes. Yes. Good, because it's fantastic. It's wonderful. So, do you recall, did you watch far enough to see where this woman touched Jesus and became well? It made me bawl. Of course, every single episode makes me cry. So if you haven't watched The Chosen, you can see it on YouTube. They're just about to release season 5. So you have 4 seasons to catch up on. I'm telling you. Doesn't matter whether you're a Jesus fan today or not, you will be. Okay, so that was about that. So, why did she get well? She had faith, and she wanted to be made well. So she went to whatever extremes it was to get well. It was her complete faith in him. And so it was with Myrtle, and so it can be with you and me. The more, or rather the deeper we fill ourselves with the truth of God that is present in every breath, the less our physical ailments will hold us back and imprison us. Maybe some of you are familiar with this story of the man who had an infirmity, and he laid at the pool of Bethesda for 38 years. Are you familiar with this guy? No. The only reason I know this stuff is because I started off as a Baptist. So I know my Bible. Those of you who watched The Chosen, do you remember this scene where he healed the man at the pool of Bethesda? So this guy is laying there by the pool of Bethesda, where apparently some angel came down and touched the waters, stirred up the waters, and the first person in that pool was healed. Now, of course, we don't know if this story is just used as a teaching tool, a myth, or whatever, but I don't really care, because I like the idea that somebody laid there for 38 years. And the deal was, let's say the pool was down here and he was up here. And he's waiting, right, for this angel to stir up the water. Well, why the heck did he not lay on the first step and just hang his hand in there so he would be healed when the angel came and stirred up the water, right? That's just me being logical. So that was the deal. Jesus comes and he asks him, "Do you want to be made well?" And the guy comes up with all these excuses. "Sir, I have nobody to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up. While I'm coming down, another steps before me." So he was making some excuses, wasn't he? But Jesus comes right to the point. "But do you want to be made well?" So when I read this, I studied my head, I scratched my head, and I thought, that seems like a rude question. Clearly this guy wants to be made well, or he wouldn't lay there for 38 years. I thought it was kind of brusque and off-putting. And Jesus was like a really nice guy, so why would he do that? I don't know. But everything that Jesus taught by way of his parables or his healings always had a deeper underlying meaning. The man was relying on another person, a family member or somebody, to carry him into the pool. Some commentaries I read accuse this man of being lazy. Charles Fillmore says, and I love this, that his bodily condition mirrored his weak and infirm thoughts, and that affected the condition within him. Jesus was merely asking if he was ready to move beyond that lower level thinking and raise his thoughts up. Do you see it? Do you see that parallel? Thank you. So I'm going to ask you, are you ready to move beyond your lower level thinking and raise your thoughts up? Of course you are. Say yes. That's what I want to hear. Yes, we don't want to stay in lower level thinking. We never want to stay there. We get stuck there, sometimes for a long time, but we don't have to stay there. So Jesus basically said, do you want to be made well? Which is where my title of my talk came from. And so that was well put, wasn't it? Do you want to be made well? So I have come and continue to come every day to an understanding that that is the very question I must ask myself. Do I want to be made well? So now I'm going to tell on myself, and you guys love this because you love when I tell on myself. Yesterday, I was sitting on my bed with my 3 dogs around me, and I was going over this talk, seeing if there were any finishing touches to put on it. And I'm sitting there quietly, minding my own business, when a still small voice comes in and asks me, do you want to be made well? I was like, what? Because I had become rather lackadaisical about a particular health condition in my body. And there is no way that Spirit is going to allow me to bring to you a talk on healing, a talk on asking yourself if you want to be made well, if I have not been asked if I want to be made well. So I got a little, and I said out loud, yes, I want to be made well. Can you say that with me? Yes, I want to be made well. And that's not just our physical being, which may need healing, but our relationships might need healing. Our finances might need healing. Our passionate endeavors might need, a little hit the start button again. Our very lives, our existence in these earth suits can become so peaceful and so serene that we become unrecognizable to ourselves. That would be kind of cool, right? So I believe this was Myrtle's experience, and it's been mine as well. Suddenly, well, maybe perhaps not so suddenly, it seems, I am experiencing what it means to be in the flow of life. Because we can't be in the flow if we are not well. I don't mean necessarily physically well, but our upper level thinking needs to be well. So I'm so much more relaxed in many areas of my life. I'm much more at ease, not living in dis-ease. And isn't that what we seek? To leave dis-ease and live in ease? Rather than living in fear or anxiety or resistance or mental anguish, we can live in ease. Even in the midst of our so-called problems, we can experience peace and ease. I can imagine that man at the pool of Bethesda was filled with fear and anxiety and mental anguish, don't you? Yeah. Our pain, whatever it may be, may not instantly or even ever vanish, but to rest in the healing light of the great mystery we call God, knowing that really, truly all is well, regardless of our life experiences, that really ends up being a choice. The choice is, do you really want to be made well? Do we choose to allow God in all the way? Do we choose to believe by faith that God is nearer to us than our hands and our feet? Take a look at your hands. Look down at your feet. God is nearer than those. And they're connected to our body, but God is nearer than those. That's pretty cool, huh? We can't see God in our hands and our feet, but God is there and in our heart. Thank you. So faith is a choice, which means healing is a choice. Do we choose to accept healing? Do we want to be made well? Do you like that? So maybe we need to talk for a few minutes about what in my life and maybe what in yours needs to be healed. We almost always look to our physical form first. Many of us or our friends and family have physical healing needs. We know this. But look beyond that. What in our inner selves might need healing? Kind of like that paralytic man by the pool who had sick, infirm thoughts that manifested in his body. Might we need to attend to our negative thinking? Does anybody think they need to attend to their negative thinking? Thank you. I appreciate your honesty. We all have negative thinking. If we're human, we have negative thinking. Do we need to attend to habits that might even be called addictions? Like shopping on Amazon every day. Or every other day. Like binge watching something on Netflix. Or wherever. Amazon Prime, whatever. Those are addictions. For me, that's an addiction. What needs to be healed in your family systems? Only you can answer that. Our neighborhood communities, what needs to be healed there? What needs to be healed in our church community? If you and I want healing, listen, we might have to open Pandora's box and find out where divine guidance wants our attention. And if you're like me, which hopefully you're not, if you're like me, you want to keep that lid on nice and tight. I want to wait till everything else in my life is going smooth, and then I'll go and hope that something comes out, just one thing that I need to attend to. Because if I ask for healing, I cannot be asking for healing in just one area. Healing happens across the board for me. How about you? Yeah. I've heard, and maybe you have too, someone say, well, we all prayed for Uncle Jim, but he died anyway. And it's often believed that God let this family down. Uncle Jim wasn't healed the way people thought that Uncle Jim should be healed. But death is a kind of healing, isn't it? The sick or injured person was certainly healed in the moment of their death, because it was just this dimension to another. Often families, not always, but often families are brought together closer in death, and this brings an additional opportunity for healing. So in all the ways mentioned and not mentioned, let's talk very briefly about some steps toward healing. Myrtle's steps. She says, first, faith. Grow your faith. Grow immense faith that you can be healed. Hebrews 11:1 says, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. From this particular passage, we can see that the central feature of faith is confidence and trust in God. It's a change of mind from our old negative thinking to positive thinking. Gratitude. Myrtle did a lot of gratitudes. I've come to understand, and maybe you have too, that the second I gain consciousness in the morning, I begin that second that I slept, because goodness knows that doesn't happen every night, and that I'm able to stand up and walk to the restroom and do what needs to be done there, and everything's working. We like to know that everything's working. Everything that I do, from brushing my teeth to putting in my contacts, everything, there is not a second of the day that needs to go by without being grateful. I have a gratitude partner. We send gratitudes about 10 back and forth every day. Do any of you have a gratitude partner? Get one if you don't have one. It almost forces you. Oh yeah, here it comes through my phone. She texts me her gratitudes. I have to text back. Not that it's hard to think them up. It's just sometimes hard to actually do it. And there's no end. There's not an end point with gratitude. It's not like you can check it off and go, okay, that's done, because gratitude is never done. Myrtle also said, know that you're perfect already. That whatever the condition is in your life, it's temporary. And the reason we know it's temporary is because we're not going to be here that long. Nothing is permanent. Everything changes all the time. And even your health condition, because we're only here in these body forms and these earth suits for a short time. And also, the fourth thing that Myrtle said is, remember that we're co-creators. We are working with that presence that animates us, God energy, source energy, universal love. So we don't have to just sit around and wait unless we've been guided to sit around and wait. We take action where we've been led. So, if our relationships, our finances, our body, our communities, if they need help, if they need our prayer, if they need our hands-on, that's for us to know we're co-creating that with God. So here's one more point. I'm almost done. And how I know it's important, this is the most important point, is that Spirit woke me up this morning. And I was told, listen to this, when I make choices that go against what is in my best interest, I am in effect saying, no, I don't want to be made well. I hope you felt that as I said that. Because each and every one of us do that. We get up and we make choices. A donut versus a cup of raspberries. That's not a choice that's going to help me be well. Do you guys get that? If we make choices that go against what's in our best interest, we are saying to Spirit, to Source, to presence that lives, is closer than our hands and feet, nah, forget it. I don't want to be made well. I don't know about you, but I don't want to do that. Do you? No. Okay, so before we move into meditation, I want you to think about blessing your body. The parts that are not well, the parts that are operating perfectly. Bless your body, every single part. I have, and you can get it too if you go to Unity Archives or whatever online. There is a meditation or a prayer that Myrtle did. She talks about how she blesses every single part of her body, every cell, every organ, every bone, every joint, every part of her body she blesses. She blessed them, and we can do it too. We take our bodies for granted until something breaks. At least I did. So, omit nothing. Bless your hair, bless your nails, bless every part of you. After all, it's been working so far up to today. You're sitting here, right?